The galaxy had long believed itself safe, civilized, and enlightened, its empires linked by trade routes and glowing diplomacy, and its historians taught that all great dangers were catalogued and contained. Among the elder species, stories of ancient wars were treated as metaphors rather than warnings, and the word human had faded into obscurity. They were described in footnotes of pre-expansion archives as fragile bipeds from a yellow star system, emotional and short-lived. Most scholars agreed humans had destroyed themselves before achieving true interstellar permanence, and so the galaxy moved on. In the Hall of Concordance, archivist Sullen adjusted her memory filaments and frowned at a rediscovered data shard. The shard was older than most living civilizations, predating even the first ring gates. Its warning glyphs were untranslated for millennia, but now the language engines finally rendered a chilling meaning. Do not wake the builders of extinction. Sullen felt an unfamiliar sensation crawl through her neural lattice, something close to fear. At the edge of explored space, a deep-range survey team had uncovered a dead system, its planets cracked and hollowed as if mined down to their cores. No natural disaster explained the precision of the destruction. Scans revealed ancient battle scars, energy signatures unlike any modern weaponry. At the center of the system floated a structure, dormant and massive, clearly artificial. When the survey probe brushed against the structure, it awakened. Light spread across its surface like a slow opening eye. A signal pulsed outward, not as a greeting but as a declaration. This territory is occupied. The probe vanished in a flare of impossible energy, erased down to quantum noise. Across the galaxy, sensors flickered as the signal propagated through forgotten channels. Hidden relays stirred, buried under ice moons and inside dead stars. For the first time in hundreds of thousands of cycles, the ancient network reconnected. And deep within the structure, something remembered why it had been built. The humans had not vanished. They had waited. Long before the current empires rose, the galaxy had been very different. It was a place of predators and conquerors, where survival depended on strength and speed of adaptation. Into this chaos stepped humanity, newly freed from their home gravity well, armed with curiosity and desperation. At first, humans were prey. Their early colonies were raided, their ships torn apart by older and stronger species. Treaties were broken, worlds were burned, and humanity learned a brutal lesson about the universe. No one was coming to save them. So they changed. Human science advanced not in comfort, but under siege. They learned to turn limitations into weapons, time into armor, and persistence into strategy. Where other species pursued elegance, humans pursued redundancy. Where others feared loss, humans planned for it. The First War began when humanity struck back, not at borders, but at foundations. They attacked logistics, star forges, and breeding worlds. They studied their enemies with ruthless attention, learning how each species thought, feared, and broke. Human fleets were ugly constructs, layered with armor and bristling with adaptable weapon systems. The elder races had never faced an enemy that refused to stop fighting, even when defeat was certain. Human commanders sacrificed ships and worlds without hesitation if it meant buying time. And time was humanity's greatest weapon. Entire coalitions collapsed under human counteroffensives. Not because humans were stronger, but because they were relentless. They kept coming, rebuilding faster than their enemies could destroy them. Every loss became data, every failure a lesson. Eventually, the galaxy united against them. Ancient powers combined their technologies and struck at humanity's core systems. Earth burned, Mars shattered, and the Sol system became a graveyard of broken megastructures. Believing the threat ended, the victors erased human records and forbade their name from history. They called it mercy. They were wrong. What they did not realize was that humanity had already prepared for this outcome. The war had been lost, but extinction had not occurred. Humanity retreated into the dark, carrying with them the memory of betrayal and the mathematics of revenge. For thousands of generations, the galaxy thrived. New civilizations rose without ever hearing the word human. Trade replaced conquest, and conflict became ritualized and contained. The ancient danger faded into myth. But in hidden places, humanity endured. They scattered themselves across uncharted space, into artificial worlds and slow-moving arcs. They abandoned flesh where necessary, merging mind and machine. They archived their pain, their rage, and their hope. Human culture transformed. No longer driven by expansion, they focused on preservation and preparation. Children were taught not stories of glory, but of patience. They learned that survival was victory enough. The Watchers were created during this era. Vast intelligences tasked with observing the galaxy without interference. They map political shifts, technological trends, and potential threats. Every species was catalogued, every weakness recorded. When humanity discovered that the galaxy had forgotten them, debate erupted. Some argued for peaceful return, offering knowledge and reconciliation. Others remembered burning worlds and broken treaties. In the end, humanity chose silence. They would not return as supplicants. They would return only if necessary. And if they did, they would ensure the mistake of forgetting them would never happen again. The signal from the dead system reached the deepest human archives. Dormant councils awakened, and ancient protocols unfolded. The question was no longer if humanity should reveal itself, but whether the galaxy deserved another chance. As the ancient human network came online, galactic authorities scrambled to understand what they were facing. Lost languages reappeared in sensor data, and forbidden symbols haunted strategic briefings. Archivist Sullen presented her findings to the High Assembly, her voice steady but strained. Humans are not extinct. They are active, organized, and technologically ascendant. And they remember everything. Panic spread faster than any human signal. Fleets mobilized, defenses fortified, and emergency alliances formed. But no human ships appeared. There were no demands, no declarations of war. Instead, systems began to fail. Not catastrophically, but precisely. Supply chains collapsed, navigation networks misaligned, and automated defenses turned inert. It was as if the galaxy itself had become unreliable. The Watchers had begun their work. Not as conquerors, but as auditors. They exposed inefficiencies, dependencies, and vulnerabilities that modern civilizations had grown blind to. A single human envoy finally appeared at the edge of assembly space. The ship was ancient in design, yet impossibly advanced. Its message was simple. We survived. We remember. And we are watching. The assembly demanded terms, reparations, explanations. The envoy offered none. Humanity was no longer interested in ruling the galaxy. They wanted something far more unsettling. Accountability. The revelation of humanity forced every species to confront its past. Old war crimes resurfaced, ancient lies unraveled. The comforting narrative of eternal progress shattered under the weight of forgotten atrocities. Humanity did not attack. They did not invade or enslave. Instead, they presented the galaxy with a choice. Continue as you are, ignorant of the consequences of your actions. Or change, knowing that someone is finally keeping score. Some species resisted, launching desperate strikes at human outposts. Those attacks vanished into the dark, never reaching their targets. The lesson was clear. Humanity no longer needed to conquer. Their existence alone was enough to reshape galactic behavior. Over time, treaties gained real meaning. Borders stabilized and exploitation decreased. Not out of fear of human weapons, but fear of human memory. Archivist Selûne recorded the final entry in the updated Galactic Chronicle. The greatest danger was never humanity's strength. It was their refusal to forget. As humanity faded once more into quiet observation, the galaxy understood the truth. Some threats do not announce themselves with fire and fleets. Some simply wait. Humans were not the ancient danger because they destroyed worlds. They were the ancient danger because they endured. And the universe would never be able to forget them again. The galaxy changed slowly after humanity revealed itself, not with explosions or revolutions, but with hesitation. Civilizations that had once expanded without thought now paused before every decision. Trade charters were rewritten with unusual care. Military doctrines quietly removed phrases that assumed inevitable dominance. For the first time in recorded galactic history, fear was not directed at a fleet or a weapon. It was directed at a witness. Humanity did not occupy worlds or demand tribute. They occupied archives. They requested access to historical records long sealed or conveniently edited. And most species complied because refusal felt more dangerous than transparency. The Watchers moved through data rather than space. They traced causality across millennia, linking collapsed civilizations to exploitation. They reconstructed erased genocides from trade fluctuations and population gaps. Nothing stayed buried once human attention touched it. For younger species, this revelation was unsettling but distant. For the elder races, it was catastrophic. They recognized the methods, the patience, the unmistakable pattern of human thinking. This was not vengeance. This was accounting. Among humanity, the long wait had shaped something new. They were no longer united by anger, but by responsibility. The survivors of Sol had grown into a culture that believed memory was sacred. To forget was to invite repetition. Human children learned history not as a story of heroes, but as a chain of consequences. They studied their own atrocities alongside those committed against them. Humanity refused to mythologize itself. That restraint made them more frightening than any conqueror. Deep within a mobile habitat drifting beyond mapped space, the Council of Continuance convened. These were not rulers in the traditional sense. They were custodians of intent. Their purpose was not to decide how to dominate the galaxy, but how much interference was morally permissible. The signal that had awakened humanity was no longer a mystery. It had been triggered by a mining consortium breaching a sealed world. A world designated under ancient human law as a tomb. Billions had died there during the First War. Their remains preserved not in stone, but in orbital debris and radiation shadows. The miners had not known. That ignorance did not undo the damage. The tomb world's activation cascade had rippled through the old network. And humanity had answered. Within the council, disagreement simmered. Some argued the galaxy had changed enough to warrant trust. Others pointed to the breach as proof that forgetting still carried a cost. The debate was not loud or emotional. It was precise, data-driven, and relentless. They reviewed projections stretching tens of thousands of cycles into the future. In most scenarios, unchecked expansion still led to collapse. Resource exhaustion, cultural stagnation, and eventually war. Humanity's existence altered those projections significantly, but only if they remained vigilant. Meanwhile, the High Assembly struggled to redefine its purpose. For centuries, it had governed through assumed superiority. Now it governed under scrutiny. Every resolution was analyzed by human observers for long-term impact. Every contradiction archived. Some assembly members resented this invisible oversight. They spoke of sovereignty and self-determination. But behind closed doors, their strategists admitted the truth. The galaxy had never been truly free. It had simply been unobserved. A turning point came when the Trellick Combine collapsed. Once a model of efficiency and unity. Its downfall was not caused by war or invasion. It was caused by exposure. Human analysis revealed that the Combine's prosperity relied on generational debt slavery hidden behind complex contracts. When the data became public, member worlds rebelled. The Combine fractured within weeks. Humanity did not intervene further. They did not need to. The message was unmistakable. Power built on concealment could not survive remembrance. Across the stars, reactions varied. Some species embraced reform, accelerating cultural evolution by centuries. Others withdrew, sealing borders and purging records in futile attempts to erase guilt. Human watchers recorded everything. There were those who tried to challenge humanity directly. A coalition of militant states launched a covert strike against a Watcher node. They believed destroying the observers would restore balance. They were wrong. The Watcher was not defended by weapons. It was defended by redundancy. The attack succeeded and failed. The destruction of the node triggered the release of its entire archive to the public galactic net. Every secret the Coalition had ever buried became common knowledge in a single cycle. The Coalition disintegrated before any human response arrived. That event ended all serious resistance. Not because humanity proved unbeatable, but because they proved inevitable. Within human society, another debate emerged. The long silence had ended, and with it, the identity humanity had crafted in isolation began to shift. Were they still a people apart? Or were they once again participants in galactic destiny? Some humans argued that observation alone was insufficient. They pointed to suffering that continued despite exposure. They believed intervention was necessary. Others warned that direct control would repeat old mistakes. The Council listened, as they always had. Then they authorized a limited experiment. In a peripheral region plagued by constant border wars, humanity intervened openly. They did not deploy fleets. They deployed mediators, engineers, and historians. They rebuilt infrastructure destroyed by centuries of conflict. And they documented everything. The region stabilized within decades, not because humanity imposed peace, but because they revealed how every faction's survival depended on the others. The data was undeniable. The wars ended because continuing them became irrational. This success emboldened some, alarmed others. The galaxy began to see what humanity truly represented. Not conquerors, not guardians, but a mirror. To be seen by humans was to be understood. And to be understood was to be judged by history rather than power. Archivist Selûne, now older than most of her kind had ever lived, recorded her final thoughts. She acknowledged that the galaxy had misunderstood danger. True danger was not annihilation. It was continuity without reflection. Humanity forced reflection. By surviving when they should not have. By remembering when forgetting was easier. By watching when others assumed no one would. As centuries passed, the phrase forgotten ancient danger faded from common use. It was replaced with something more accurate. The unblinking witness. Humanity never reclaimed their lost homeworlds. Sol remained a memorial zone, untouched and silent. A reminder of what escalation without restraint could cost. New generations of humans grew up alongside the galaxy they once feared. They spoke dozens of languages. They served as historians, analysts, and custodians. Their presence became ordinary, which was perhaps their greatest achievement. Yet deep in the dark, beyond observation posts and diplomatic corridors, contingency arcs still waited. Because humanity never fully abandoned preparation. They had learned that vigilance was not paranoia. It was respect for reality. The galaxy adapted. Slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably. And somewhere in the endless data streams, the Watchers continued their quiet work. Not to punish, not to rule, but to ensure that no scream vanished without echo. The ancient danger had never been humanity's weapons or strategies. It had always been their memory. A memory that refused to fade. A memory that watched the universe grow up. And as long as someone remembered, the cycle would not begin again.